The great hall of the imperial palace was filled with worried voices. Empress Talindra sat on her throne looking tired and old. Around her, the most powerful leaders in the galaxy argued with each other. The Valtorian Empire was in trouble and everyone knew it. High Commander Vorik stood tall in his black uniform. His medals shined under the bright lights. He was a proud man who believed the Empire was the greatest power in the universe. Today he had come to share his plan to save them all. The Empire controlled thousands of star systems. For 300 years they had conquered world after world. Their warships were the strongest. Their soldiers were the best. Everyone feared them. But now things were changing in bad ways. The mining colonies were running out of important minerals. Food supplies were getting low on many planets. The people they had conquered were starting to fight back. Worst of all, the Empire's own leaders were fighting each other for power. Some wanted to be the next emperor or empress. The unity that made the Empire strong was breaking apart. Empress Talindra raised her hand. The room became quiet. She spoke with a heavy voice that showed her worry. We need solutions. Our people are hungry. Our colonies need resources. What can we do? Vorik stepped forward. His eyes were bright with excitement. He had been waiting for this moment. Your Majesty, I have the answer. There is a place we have never explored. A place full of resources, a place that could make our empire great again. The council members leaned forward. Even the Empress looked interested. The Terran quarantine zone, Vorik said loudly. That forbidden space near the Galactic Rim. It has been closed for 300 years. The old records say it is dangerous, but I say those records are lies. Old fears from a forgotten time. Several council members began talking at once. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked shocked. The Terran zone was the one place in the galaxy that everyone avoided. Ancient laws said that no one should ever go there. An old man stood up slowly. He wore simple robes and carried old books. This was Scholar Renix, keeper of the Imperial Archives. He had read every ancient record. His voice shook as he spoke. High Commander, you must not do this. I have studied the old texts. The humans who lived there were dangerous. They fought terrible wars. They created weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The prohibition exists to protect us all, Vorik laughed. It was not a kind sound. An old man's fears. Scholar Renix, those records are 300 years old. Even if humans existed back then, they are surely dead or primitive now. We have the strongest fleet in the galaxy. What could possibly threaten us? Sub-Commander Zalis, who served under Vorik, stood near the back of the room. She was younger than most of the commanders, but she was smart and careful. She had read some of the same records as Renix. They made her nervous. High Commander, she said carefully, perhaps we should send a small scout ship first, to see what is actually there. Vorik turned to her with angry eyes. A scout ship? That shows weakness. We are the Valtorian Empire. We do not creep around like frightened children. We take what we need with strength and power. The other military commanders cheered. They liked Vorik's strong words. Many of them had built their careers on conquest and war. They wanted glory, not caution. Empress Talindra looked from Vorik to Renix and back again. She was tired of problems with no solutions. The Empire needed resources. Her people needed hope. The military leaders wanted action. Maybe Vorik was right. Maybe the old warnings were just ancient superstition. How many ships would you need? She asked Vorik. His smile was wide and confident. Give me 2,000 warships, Your Majesty. Enough to handle any possible threat. Enough to show the power of our empire. Renix stepped forward again. Your Majesty, please. Let me show you the records. The humans were not like us. They thought differently. They built weapons we cannot imagine. The old council feared them for good reason. But the Empress had made her choice. She needed to show strength. She needed to give her people hope. She needed to trust her military commanders. High Commander Vorik, you have permission to prepare your fleet. You will enter the Terran zone and claim it for the Empire. May our ancestors guide you to victory. The military leaders cheered loudly. Vorik bowed deeply, his face full of pride and triumph. Scholar Renix sat down slowly, his head in his hands. Zalis stood quietly, a worried look on her face. Over the next few weeks, the Imperial fleet gathered at the edge of known space. 2,000 warships came from every corner of the Empire. They were huge ships built for war. Each one carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. Together, they formed the largest military force assembled in decades. Vorik walked through the flagship's command deck. Officers saluted as he passed. On the viewing screens, he could see the endless lines of warships waiting for his command. His chest filled with pride. This was what the Empire was meant to be: strong, powerful, unstoppable. Salis found him standing alone in his private quarters looking at star maps. "Sir, I still think we should send scouts ahead. We know nothing about what awaits us." Vorik did not turn around. "Your concern is noted, Sub-Commander. But it is unnecessary. We have the finest ships, the best weapons, the strongest soldiers. Whatever is in that zone, we will crush it." "And if the old records are true?" she asked quietly. Now he turned. His eyes were hard. "Then we will prove that the Valtorian Empire is stronger than any ancient myth. We will show the galaxy that nothing can stop us. Not old warnings. Not forgotten enemies, nothing." The day of departure came. The fleet moved together, a massive force of metal and fire. They jumped through hyperspace in perfect formation. The journey would take 3 days. Then they would reach the boundary of the Terran quarantine zone. Back on Valtoria Prime, Scholar Rennick sat in his archive room. Ancient books and data crystals surrounded him. He had spent days searching for more information about the humans. Everything he found made him more afraid. The old records spoke of humans who had nearly destroyed themselves. Wars that lasted generations. Weapons that changed reality itself. And then 300 years ago, silence. The humans had closed their borders and disappeared from galactic contact. The old council had declared their space forbidden and made everyone promise to never go there. Why would they close themselves off? Renix wondered. What had they become during those 3 centuries? The questions kept him awake at night. On the flagship, Vorik stood on the command deck as they prepared for the final jump. Officers worked at their stations, running checks on weapons and shields. "Everything was ready. All ships report ready, sir," an officer said. Vorik nodded. This was his moment. This was when he would make history. The Empire would remember him as the commander who conquered the last forbidden territory. "All ships jump on my command. Take us into the Terran zone." Captain Hana stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the displays carefully. She was in charge of Earth's border defense fleet. For 20 years, she had prepared for something that might never happen. Today, that something had finally arrived. The sensors had detected the Valtorian fleet 3 weeks ago. Since then, every defense station around Earth had been watching and waiting. The humans had known this day might come. They had prepared for it, but they had hoped it would never happen. "Captain, the alien fleet has crossed the warning line," her first officer reported. "They passed all 12 beacons without stopping. 2,000 warships in standard attack formation." Hana nodded slowly. The warning beacons had been broadcasting the same message for 300 years. "Stay away. This space is forbidden. Do not enter." The message played in every known language. But the aliens had ignored them all. "Contact Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we are moving to intercept position." On Earth, in the city of Geneva, the emergency council met in a secure room deep underground. Admiral Taeyang sat at the head of the table. He was an old man now, but his mind was still sharp. Around him sat the leaders of Earth's government. Ambassador Minho spoke first. He was calm, as always. Nothing seemed to make him panic or rush. "We must try to talk to them first. They might not understand the danger. They might not know our history." Dr. Jiwon, the historian, shook her head. "I have studied their transmissions. These are the Valtorians. They are conquerors. They have destroyed dozens of civilizations. They believe they are the strongest power in the galaxy." "Then we will show them they are wrong," said Admiral Taeyang. "But Minho is right. We give them one chance. We show them what we can do. If they are smart, they will leave. If not, we defend ourselves," the council agreed. Minho would speak for humanity. Hana would demonstrate their power. And if the aliens still attacked, Earth would respond with force. High Commander Vorik stood on his flagship's bridge, feeling pleased with himself. They had entered the Forbidden Zone without any problems. No weapons had fired at them. No enemy fleet had appeared. Just as he thought, the old warnings were meaningless. "Sir, sensors are picking up something," an officer said suddenly. "One ship, small, directly ahead." Vorik frowned. "One ship?" "Show me." The screen changed. There, floating in space before their entire fleet, was a single human vessel. It was not very large. It looked simple compared to the Imperial warships. But there was something strange about it. Something that made the officers nervous. "Where did it come from?" Vorik demanded. "Our sensors should have detected it from light years away." The sensor officer looked confused. "I don't know, sir. It just appeared. One moment nothing, the next moment there it was. Zala stepped closer to examine the readings. Her heart was beating fast. Cloaking technology that their sensors could not detect. That should be impossible. The Empire had the best sensors in the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it on," Vorik ordered. A man's face appeared on the screen. He was older, with gray hair and calm eyes. He spoke in perfect Valtorian language without any accent. "I am Ambassador Minho of Earth. You have entered prohibited space. The warnings were clear. We ask you politely to turn around and leave. This is your only warning." Vorik left. He could not help it. One small ship against his entire fleet, and this human was giving him orders? "I am High Commander Vorik of the Valtorian Empire. This territory now belongs to us. You will surrender immediately. If you resist, we will destroy you." Minho's expression did not change. He looked almost sad. "We hoped you would choose peace. Very well. We will demonstrate why this space is forbidden. Pay attention, Commander. This is a lesson your empire needs to learn." The transmission ended. Vorik's face turned red with anger. "Destroy that ship." Now the flagship's main weapon powered up. It was the strongest gun in the fleet, capable of destroying a small moon. The weapon fired. A massive beam of energy shot toward the human ship at the speed of light. Everyone on the bridge watched, expecting to see the human ship explode. But something impossible happened. The beam hit the ship and simply disappeared. It did not bounce off. It did not break through. It vanished as if it had never existed at all. The bridge went silent. Officers stared at their screens, not believing what they had just seen. "Fire again," Vorik shouted. "All forward ships fire at will." 20 more warships fired their weapons. Energy beams and missiles streaked through space. They all hit the human ship, and they all disappeared without leaving a mark. Zalis felt cold fear in her stomach. The old scholar had been right. These humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They had technology that made the Empire look like children playing with toys. The human ship moved slightly. Its weapons charged. They could see the energy building on their sensors. "Shields up," Vorik ordered. "Maximum power." The human ship fired. One single shot. It was a thin beam of light, almost beautiful. It passed through the shields of every ship in the fleet as if they were not there. It traveled all the way to the back of their formation. Then a supply ship exploded. It was empty of crew, used only for carrying extra food and materials. But the message was clear. The humans could have hit any ship. They could have destroyed the flagship. They chose not to kill anyone. Ambassador Minho's face appeared on the screen again. "Commander Vorik, you have now seen what we can do. Your shields cannot stop our weapons. Your ships cannot hurt ours. We do not wish to kill your people. We only want you to leave our space. You have 1 hour to turn your fleet around and go home. If you attack again, we will defend ourselves properly." The screen went dark. On the bridge, nobody spoke. They had just learned that everything they believed was wrong. The Valtorian Empire was not the strongest power in the galaxy. These humans, hiding in their forbidden zone, had surpassed them completely. Zalis found her voice first. "Sir, we should accept their offer. We cannot win this fight, but Vorik's pride was too great. He could not accept defeat. He could not return to the Empress and admit he had failed. His entire career, his reputation, his dreams of glory, all of it would be destroyed." "No," he said quietly. Then louder, "No, they are tricking us. It must be some kind of illusion technology. We have 2,000 ships. They have one. The Empire does not run from anyone!" "But sir," Zalis tried again, "their technology is far beyond ours. The old records were true. We need to report this to the Empress and reconsider our approach." Vorik turned to her with anger in his eyes. "Are you challenging my command, Sub-Commander?" She wanted to say yes. She wanted to take command and save all these lives. But military law was clear. Vorik was in charge. She could only advise. "No, sir," she said softly. "Good. Prepare all ships for full assault. We will overwhelm them with numbers. Even advanced shields must have limits. We attack in 1 hour." Captain Hana received the report from her sensor officer. The alien fleet was preparing to attack. They had not accepted the warning. They had chosen war. She felt sadness in her heart. These aliens did not understand. They thought this was about strength and weakness. They thought bigger numbers meant victory. They had no idea what humans had learned during their darkest days. Order the defense fleet to decloak, she commanded. All ships to battle positions. We tried peace. Now we protect our home. Around the Valtorian fleet, 50 human ships appeared out of nowhere. They had been there all along, invisible and waiting. They surrounded the Imperial forces completely. On the flagship bridge, officers shouted in alarm. Vorik stared at the displays in shock. 50 against 2,000, but somehow he no longer felt confident about those numbers. The hour was up. The battle was about to begin, and the Valtorian Empire was about to learn the hardest lesson of its existence. Vorik gave the command. 2,000 Imperial warships opened fire at once. The space between the fleets filled with weapons fire. Energy beams, missiles, plasma torpedoes, everything the Empire had created for war. It was the most powerful attack ever launched by the Valtorian military. The human ships did not move. They simply floated in space as the massive wave of destruction approached them. On the Imperial flagship, officers watched their screens, certain that nothing could survive such an attack. Then all the weapons disappeared. Every missile, every energy beam, every torpedo simply vanished before reaching the human shields. It was as if they had fired at ghosts. The human ships remained untouched, not even slightly damaged. For a moment, there was silence on every Imperial bridge. Then Captain Hana's voice spoke across all channels. You were warned. You chose not to listen. Now we will disable your fleet. We will not kill your crews if we can avoid it. But we will protect our home. The human ships began to move. They were fast, much faster than anything the Valtorians had. They moved through the Imperial formation like dancers, impossible to predict or target. And as they moved, they fired. Their weapons were precise. Each shot hit exactly what it aimed for. Engine rooms. Weapon systems. Shield generators. They did not target life support or crew quarters. They were disabling ships, not destroying them. Within minutes, 100 Imperial ships were drifting in space, powerless. Within an hour, 500 ships were disabled. The humans worked with frightening efficiency. 50 ships were defeating an army of thousands. Zalis watched the battle displays with growing horror. This was not a battle. This was a lesson. The humans were showing them exactly how outmatched they were. Every shot proved that the Empire's weapons were useless. Every disabled ship proved that the Empire's defenses meant nothing. Sir, we have lost half the fleet, she reported to Vorik. We must retreat. But Vorik was beyond reason now. His whole world was falling apart. Everything he believed was wrong. The Empire was not supreme. He was not leading them to victory. He was leading them to complete defeat. No, he said. His voice was strange, almost broken. We have one more option. The forbidden weapon. Zalis felt ice in her veins. Sir, that weapon has never been tested. The scientists said it could destroy space itself. It could kill us all, including our own fleet. Better to die than accept this shame, Vorik said. He opened a secure channel. Engineering, activate the reality disruptor. Deep in the flagship's core, engineers looked at each other in fear. They had built this weapon from ancient technology found on a dead world. It manipulated space and time in ways they did not fully understand. Using it was insanity, but orders were orders. They activated it, space itself began to tear. Reality bent and twisted. The stars around them seemed to stretch and distort. Sensors went crazy. Ships began to shake violently. On Earth, alarms screamed through every defense station. Dr. Jiwan stared at her readings in disbelief. They activated a quantum disruptor. Admiral, if we don't contain that, it will spread. It could destroy the entire sector. Admiral Taeyang's face went pale. He had hoped to never use humanity's most advanced technology again. Those weapons reminded him of Earth's dark past. But they had no choice now. Captain Hana, you are authorized to use Containment Protocol 7. Protect the sector at all costs. Hana took a deep breath. Understood, sir. All ships activate quantum stabilizers. Maximum power. Containment pattern Delta. The human ships began to glow with strange light. They formed a perfect sphere around the Valtorian fleet. Energy poured from them, creating a barrier that held reality together. The Terran space stopped growing. Slowly, very slowly, it began to heal. Inside the containment field, the Valtorian ships shook and groaned. Officers held onto their stations. Some prayed. Some cried. They thought they were about to die. Then it stopped. The shaking ended. The distortion faded. Space returned to normal. They were alive. Ambassador Minho's face appeared on every Imperial screen. His expression was sad but firm. You nearly killed yourselves and everyone around you. You used a weapon you did not understand. We stopped it. We saved your lives and the lives of billions of others in nearby systems. He paused, letting his words sink in. I want to tell you a story. 300 years ago, we humans were like you. We thought we were special. We thought our power made us important. We built weapons that could destroy planets. We fought wars that killed billions. On Valtoria Prime, Scholar Renix listened to the transmission with tears running down his face. Finally, someone was telling the truth he had found in the old records. Minho continued his story. We created machines that thought for themselves and turned against us. We developed diseases that we could not cure. We built bombs that changed reality. And one day we nearly destroyed ourselves completely. Our planet was dying. Our civilization was ending. We had maybe 10 years left. Dr. Jiwan's voice joined the transmission. She was younger than Minho but spoke with the same authority. What saved us was not technology. It was wisdom. We stopped fighting each other. We united. We asked ourselves hard questions. Why did we build these weapons? What were we trying to prove? Who were we trying to defeat? We spent the next 100 years fixing our planet and ourselves. We learned to use our technology wisely. We created new rules. We promised never to use our weapons for conquest, only for defense. Minho appeared again. Then we closed our borders. Not because we were afraid of you, but because we were afraid of ourselves. We needed time to become better, to make sure we would never fall into the same mistakes again. For 300 years we have watched the galaxy. We saw your empire conquer world after world. We saw you make the same mistakes we made. We hoped you would learn before it was too late. The warning beacons were not threats. They were advice. Stay away from us until you learn to control yourselves. On the flagship bridge, Vorik sat in his command chair, his face in his hands. Everything made sense now. The humans were not hiding because they were weak. They were protecting the galaxy from their own power until they could be trusted with it. Your empire is falling, Dr. Jiwan said gently, not because we attacked you, but because it was built on fear and force. Systems built that way always fall eventually. We know. We lived it. Captain Hana's voice was firm but not cruel. We are going to disable the rest of your fleet now. We will not harm your crews. We will give you life support and basic supplies. Then you can return home and think about what you have learned here. The human ships moved through the remaining Imperial vessels. One by one, they were disabled with surgical precision. No one died. No ships were destroyed. But the proud Valtorian fleet was left helpless, drifting in space. On Valtoria Prime, Empress Talindra watched the transmission in her throne room. The council members around her were silent. Some looked angry. Some looked scared. But she just looked tired. Scholar Renix, she said quietly, you were right. I should have listened to you. I should have read the old records. Renix bowed his head. Your Majesty, it is not too late to learn. The humans survived their mistakes. Perhaps we can too. Already news of the defeat was spreading through the Empire. Conquered worlds saw their chance for freedom. Rival commanders saw their chance for power. The careful balance that held the Empire together was breaking. Vorik sat alone in his quarters. Zalus had taken command of the fleet with his permission. He had nothing left. His career was over. His pride was destroyed. But for the first time in his life, he was thinking clearly. The humans had beaten them completely. But they had not killed anyone. They had shown mercy. Why? What kind of power shows mercy to its enemies? Ambassador Minho's final words echoed in his mind. We hoped you would learn before it was too late. Vorik realized something important. It was not too late. The humans had given them a gift. Not victory or defeat, but a chance to change. A chance to become something better than conquerors. Whether the Empire would take that chance, only time would tell. The disabled Valtorian fleet drifted in space. 2,000 warships, once the pride of an empire, now helpless and waiting. The crews sat in darkness, their life support running on emergency power. They expected death. They expected the humans to come and finish what they started. Instead, human ships began docking with the Imperial vessels. Soldiers in environmental suits came aboard, but they carried medical supplies instead of weapons. Engineers followed, bringing repair equipment and power generators. Food and water arrived by the ton. The Valtorian crews could not understand it. Why were their enemies helping them? Why provide aid to those who had just tried to invade their home? Captain Hana walked through the corridors of the Imperial flagship. Her security team followed at a distance. She had requested a meeting with Vorik, and Zalus had granted permission. She found him in his quarters. He looked much older than he had just days ago. The proud commander was gone. In his place sat a broken man who had learned the hardest lesson of his life. Why? Vorik asked without looking up. Why not just kill us? We tried to conquer you. We used a forbidden weapon. We deserve death. Hana sat down across from him. Because we have been where you are now. We have stood in the ruins of our own mistakes. We know what it feels like to realize you were wrong about everything. We were monsters, Vorik said quietly. My people have conquered dozens of civilizations. Billions have suffered under our rule, and I led this attack thinking we had the right to take whatever we wanted. Yes, Hana agreed. You were wrong. Your empire has done terrible things, but killing you would not undo that harm. It would just create more death. She leaned forward. Commander, the question is not what you were. The question is what you will choose to become. You can spend your life mourning your mistakes, or you can spend it making things better. The choice is yours. Vorik finally looked at her. How do we make things better after so much wrong? One step at a time, Hana said. One world freed. One person helped. One choice to be better than yesterday. On Valtoria Prime, the Empire was tearing itself apart. News of the fleet's defeat had reached every corner of their territory. The response was chaos. Conquered species rose in rebellion. Systems on the frontier declared independence. Military commanders fought each other for control. The fear that had held the Empire together was gone. Without it, there was nothing to stop the collapse. Empress Talindra sat in her throne room with Scholar Renix and a few loyal advisors. Most of the council had fled or joined different factions. Her empire was crumbling and she could not stop it. Your Majesty, Renix said carefully, perhaps it is time to speak with the humans. They might help us prevent total war. A military advisor laughed bitterly. Help us? Why would they help the people who just tried to invade them? Because, said a new voice, preventing suffering seems to be what they do. Sub-Commander Zalus entered the throne room. She had taken a small, fast ship and traveled directly to the capital. She looked exhausted but determined. She knelt before the Empress. Your Majesty, I have spoken with the humans. They are offering to help stabilize the situation, but they have conditions. Like what conditions? Talindra asked. They want us to release all conquered species. They want democratic reforms. They want the Empire to join a new galactic council based on cooperation, not domination. The military advisor stood up angrily. That would be the end of the Empire. They want us to surrender everything. The Empire is already ending, Zalus said firmly. I have seen the reports. 300 systems in open rebellion, 5 fleets fighting each other. Billions will die if this continues. The humans are offering us a chance to transform into something better, instead of just destroying ourselves. Empress Talindra was quiet for a long time. She thought about her long reign, about the conquests and the glory, about the fear and the suffering, about what her empire had become. Sub-Commander Zalus, she said finally, you will lead a diplomatic mission to Earth. You will speak for me and for all Valtorians who want peace. Accept their conditions. We will rebuild our civilization on better foundations. The military advisor stormed out, but Renix smiled for the first time in weeks. There was hope. Zalus traveled to Earth in a small, unarmed ship. As she approached the blue planet, she felt a strange emotion. Not fear exactly, but deep respect. This world had nearly destroyed itself and then remade itself into something extraordinary. She landed in Geneva, an ancient city that humans had made their diplomatic capital. The buildings were beautiful, blending nature and technology in harmony. Trees grew between elegant structures. Rivers flowed clean and clear. It was nothing like the gray military cities of the Empire. Ambassador Minho met her at the landing platform. He wore simple clothes and smiled warmly. Behind him stood Admiral Taeyang in his military uniform, and Dr. Ji-won with her data tablets. Welcome to Earth, Sub-Commander Zalus, Minho said. You are the first non-human to visit our world in 300 years. We are honored. Zalus was surprised. Honored? After what her people had tried to do? They walked through the city. Humans stopped to look at her with curiosity but not fear or hate. Children waved. Old people smiled. It was so different from the Empire, where conquered species looked at Valtorian officials with fear and anger. In a quiet meeting room, They sat down to discuss the future. Zalus explained the situation honestly. The Empire was falling apart. Billions were at risk. Chaos was spreading. "We accept your conditions," she said. "The Empress will release all conquered territories. She will establish democratic reforms. We will join your Galactic Council, but we need help to do this without mass death. Can you help us?" Admiral Taeyang looked at her seriously. "Why should we? Your empire has caused suffering for centuries. Many would say you deserve to fall." Zalus met his eyes. "You are right. We deserve the consequences of our actions. But the people dying in these rebellions are not all guilty. Many were just living their lives under our rule. Children who never chose this empire. Workers who never had power. They should not suffer for our leaders' mistakes." Dr. Jiwan nodded. "She makes a good point, Admiral. We have the power to help. The question is whether we have the wisdom to use it correctly." Minho smiled slightly. "We have spent 300 years preparing to rejoin the galaxy. Perhaps this is why we were meant to wait. Not to hide, but to be ready for this exact moment." They discussed details for hours. Human peacekeeping forces would protect vulnerable populations. Human diplomats would help negotiate transitions to self-rule. Human engineers would prevent infrastructure collapse, but humans would not rule. They would guide, advise, and protect, then step back and let each species find its own path. "There is one more thing," Zalus said. "Commander Vorik, he is broken by what happened, but he wants to help fix what he broke. Is there a place for him in this new order?" Admiral Taeyang considered this. He must face justice for his actions. But justice does not always mean punishment. Sometimes it means redemption through service. If he is sincere, we will find work for him. As Zalus prepared to leave Earth, she stood on a hill overlooking Geneva. The city lights sparkled below. Stars shined above. For the first time in her life, she felt hope for the future. Minho stood beside her. "Your empire is ending," he said gently, "but something better can take its place. Something built on cooperation instead of conquest. It will be hard. Many will resist. But it is possible. We are proof of that." Zalus nodded. "Thank you. For the mercy. For the help. For showing us a better way." "Thank yourselves," Minho replied. "You chose to ask for help instead of fighting to the end. You chose to change instead of clinging to the past. That takes more courage than any battle." As her ship lifted off from Earth, Zalus looked back at the blue planet. Humanity had almost destroyed itself and then rebuilt into something beautiful. Now they were offering the same chance to the galaxy. Whether the galaxy would take it was still uncertain, but at least now there was a chance. And sometimes a chance is all you need. 6 months had passed since the battle at the Terran border. The galaxy was changing in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Hana's fleet no longer patrolled just the human border. Now they traveled throughout former Imperial space, protecting vulnerable populations during the transition. Her ships stopped conflicts before they could become wars. They delivered supplies to worlds in need. They stood between violence and the innocent. She stood on her ship's bridge, reviewing reports from dozens of systems. It was exhausting work, but important work. Every life they saved was a reason to continue. "Captain, we have a request for assistance from the Kelhari system," her communications officer reported. 2 factions fighting over who should govern. Civilians caught in the middle. "Set course for Kelhari," Hana ordered, "and contact Ambassador Minho's team. They will need to negotiate once we establish peace." Across the galaxy, Ambassador Minho and his diplomatic teams worked tirelessly. They helped former Imperial subjects establish new governments. They mediated between species that had been enemies. They taught the principles of cooperation that Earth had learned through hard experience. It was slow work. Some negotiations took weeks. Some groups refused to trust each other. Some wanted revenge instead of peace. But slowly, progress happened. New alliances formed. Old enemies began talking. The chaos started to settle into something resembling order. Dr. Jiwan led educational programs on dozens of worlds. She taught history, showing how civilizations had risen and fallen throughout time. She explained how humanity had nearly destroyed itself and what lessons they had learned. She helped others understand that strength without wisdom led only to ruin. Young students of many species sat in her classes, eager to learn. They asked questions about Earth's dark past and bright present. They wanted to know how to build better societies. She answered each question with patience and hope. On Valtoria Prime, Empress Talindra kept her word. She released every conquered territory, She established a representative government to replace the old imperial system. She stood before her people and admitted the empire's mistakes. It was not easy. Many Valtorians were angry about losing their empire. Some called her a traitor. Some tried to start military coups. But Scholar Renix and Sub-Commander Zayla stood beside her, and slowly public opinion began to shift. People started to see that the old empire had been built on fear and suffering. They began to understand that true strength came from cooperation, not domination. The change was gradual, but it was real. Zalis herself became a symbol of the new Valtoria. She traveled between worlds, speaking about her experiences. She told the story of what happened at the Terran border. She explained how the humans could have destroyed them but chose mercy instead. We thought power meant having the biggest weapons, she told audiences. But the humans taught us that real power means choosing not to use them. It means protecting instead of conquering. It means building up instead of tearing down. Vorik worked quietly on a refugee world called Meridian. The planet was home to species displaced by imperial wars. They had lost their homes, their families, their futures. Now Vorik helped rebuild what he had helped destroy. He worked harder than anyone. Building shelters, distributing food, teaching children. He never spoke about his past rank or glory. When people asked who he was, he simply said he was someone trying to make things better. One day, Ambassador Minho visited Meridian. He found Vorik working in a construction site helping build a school. "How are you doing, Commander?" Minho asked. Vorik looked up from his work. His hands were dirty. His uniform was replaced with simple work clothes. But his eyes were clearer than they had been in months. "I am not a commander anymore," he said. "Just a worker. And I am doing better than I have in years." "You are making a difference here," Minho observed. "A very small difference compared to the harm I caused. But it is something. Every day I try to help one more person. Build one more home. That is all I can do." Minho nodded with approval. "Redemption is not a destination. It is a journey. You are on the right path." The great meeting of species took place on a neutral station in deep space. Representatives from 200 civilizations gathered. Former enemies sat in the same room. Former conquerors and conquered faced each other. Admiral Taeyang stood before them all. His voice was strong but not dominating. "We are here to form a new galactic council. Not like the old councils based on power and fear. This council will be built on equality and cooperation. Every species, large or small, will have a voice. Decisions will be made together, not forced by the strong onto the weak." There were questions, doubts, arguments. Some species did not trust each other. Some did not trust humanity. But they talked. They negotiated. They compromised. And slowly the framework of a new galactic order emerged. Earth would not lead this new council. Humanity insisted on this. They would participate as equals, offer guidance when asked, and share technology carefully. But they would not rule. They had learned that lesson already. Dr. Jiwan was appointed as the first director of the Technology Sharing Committee. Her job was to evaluate requests for advanced technology and ensure it was used responsibly. Every species could advance, but no one would be given weapons of mass destruction. "We will share knowledge freely," she told the council. "Medical technology, energy systems, agricultural methods, all of these things that improve life. But weapons designed only for destruction? Those we will not share. Learn to protect yourselves, yes, but do not repeat our mistakes." The Terran quarantine zone remained in place, but it was different now. The warning beacons were updated. They no longer said stay away forever. Instead, they welcomed peaceful visitors but warned that Earth would defend itself if necessary. A few species were given permission to visit Earth. They came as students and diplomats, eager to learn from the world that had transformed itself. They walked through human cities, studied human history, and returned home with new ideas about how societies could be organized. 1 year after the battle, Ambassador Minho traveled to Valtoria Prime. He had been invited by Empress Talindra for a special ceremony. The Valtorian people were celebrating their first free election. The old imperial government was officially ending. Minho stood with Talindra on a balcony overlooking a massive crowd. Millions of Valtorians filled the streets below, celebrating their new beginning. There was music and dancing. Children played. Old enemies embraced. "I never thought I would see this day," Talindra said. She was no longer empress. Soon she would be just a citizen. But she looked more at peace than she had in decades. Your people are resilient, Minho observed. They adapted faster than we expected. We had a good teacher, Talindra said with a slight smile. Earth showed us that change is possible, that civilizations can transform themselves, that it is never too late to choose a better path. She turned to face him. Ambassador, I must ask, why did you help us? We tried to invade your world. We nearly caused a disaster with our forbidden weapon. You had every right to let us destroy ourselves. Minho was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. 300 years ago, humanity stood where your empire stood. Powerful but arrogant. Technologically advanced but morally lost. We nearly destroyed ourselves. If we had succeeded, the galaxy would have been deprived of what we could become. What we could contribute. He gestured to the celebrating crowd below. The same is true for your people. Yes, you made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But you are capable of so much more than conquest. You have artists and scientists, philosophers and builders. All that potential should not be wasted because your leaders chose wrongly. We helped you because we believe in second chances. We believe that intelligent beings can learn from their mistakes. We believe that the galaxy is better when civilizations grow together instead of destroying each other. Talindra felt tears in her eyes. Thank you. For the mercy. For the wisdom. For showing us there is another way. They stood together watching the celebration. The Valtorian Empire had fallen, but from its ruins something better was growing. Something built on cooperation instead of fear, on freedom instead of domination. Back on Earth, Captain Hana stood in her garden. She had requested time off from active duty, and it had been granted. She tended her plants and watched the sunset, grateful for the peace. Her communicator beeped. It was a message from a Kelhari diplomat she had helped months ago. The two factions had reached an agreement. A peaceful government had been formed. Children were going back to school. The crisis was over. Hana smiled. This was why they had prepared for 300 years. This was why they had studied and trained and hoped, not to dominate the galaxy but to protect it, not to conquer others but to help them find their own paths. Admiral Taeyang sat in his office on Earth, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. Progress was uneven. Some regions were peaceful. Others still struggled. But overall the trend was positive. The galaxy was learning. He thought about the long journey that had brought them here. The terrible wars that nearly ended humanity. The hard choices to close their borders and work on themselves. The patience to wait for the right moment to rejoin galactic civilization. It had all been worth it. Not because humans were special or superior, but because they had learned lessons that the galaxy needed.